Welcome back. The final stage in the Blue Book is entitled Medicus. Medicus is the Latin word for doctor, and in this stage we'll learn about the science and practice of medicine in the Roman world. The illustration shows a seal stone belonging to a doctor, presumably, as a man is examining a patient on the right while being observed on the left by Asclepius, the Greek god of healing and medicine, son of Apollo. As always with Greek gods, we know which god he is by what he's holding in his hand. He's holding a staff which is entwined with a snake, like this. Now, the reason we need to see a doctor in our story is that Barbilus has been injured. Remember the hippo? Right, so the hippo turned over the boat, Barbilus fell in the water, the Ethiopian guy threw a spear accidentally hit Barbilus. The stories in this chapter are all about what happens next. In the model sentences on page 134, we're bringing Barbilus home to see what can be done for him. As usual, a new feature of the Latin language will be introduced in these sentences, and we'll break that down as we go. Number 1, servi ad velam revenerunt barbilum portantes. Right? The slaves returned to the house. Barbilum portantes, carrying Barbilus. All right? Servi is nominative plural. Revenerunt is third person plural. Right? Perfect tense. The slaves returned to the house. The new thing happens after the comma. Barbilum portantes, where barbilum is the accusative object, not of another verb, they were carrying, but rather of an adjective derived from a verb. Portat means carry. Portantes describes the slaves as carrying. Right? So that's not a verb ending, that's a noun ending from the third declension. We're going to see a lot of these in this chapter, and you're going to find the letters NT are going to be very helpful to you in identifying them. NT followed by endings of the third declension from the noun adjective pattern. Those are going to mean ing. Right? Someone is being described as doing whatever that verb root means. These are called present active participles, and again, we're going to see a lot of them in this chapter. There's one at the end of sentence 2. Ancillae propelectum stabant. The girls were standing propelectum, next to the couch, lacrimantes, right, crying. Now, girls is a noun, right, first declension, a nominative plural. Stabant is a verb in the imperfect tense, third person plural. Girls were standing. Lacrimantes, like portantes, is not a verb at all, but rather a participle, an adjective describing what the girls were doing as they stood there. Lacrimantes. Again, NT is going to be a clue that you're looking at one of these ing words, right? So this is just a way that we don't have to have another stupid sentence at the end. The girls were standing next to the couch. The girls were crying, right? The Red Book did that. Now we're combining these two things using a participle. It's one of many ways Latin has of combining two simple sentences into a somewhat slightly more complex compound sentence, and we're going to see lots of other ones. Okay, here you have one of my favorite pictures from the Latin book. Astrologos in cubiculum erupit clamans. The astrologer, remember him? In cubiculum erupit. He burst in. It's the opposite of erupit if you think about it. To erupt, to burst out. Erupit, the first R used to be an N, to burst in. So the astrologer burst into the bedroom. Clamans, right? So here's our participle at the end. Clamans. What was he doing as he burst into the bedroom? Shouting. Notice here, we don't have an NT, we have an NS. When these forms, these participles, are in the nominative singular, you'll see that there's an NS with no other letters after it, right? Shouting. Clamat, right? He is shouting. If I wanted to make a separate sentence for that word, I would say the astrologer burst into the room. Astrologos clamabat. The astrologer was shouting. That would have been two separate sentences. I could make them one by using the word and. Astrologos in cubiculum erupit et clamabat. That's really awkward. There's no need for that. Astrologer burst into the room shouting. I consider number 4 to be almost as memeable as picture number 3. You could replace this caption with almost anything, and it would be funny. What it actually says, though, is Barbilus in lecto recumbens astrologum audivit. And here, we're going to do something Latin does a whole lot. We're going to use one of these participles in between commas. Right? English does this too. Barbilus, the simple sentence is on the outside of the commas. Barbilus astrologum audivit. Barbilus heard the astrologer. Astrologum is accusative here. Barbilus is not dead. He's not even asleep. He's not looking well, obviously. But he heard the astrologer. Now, Barbilus, when he heard the astrologer, was in lecto recumbens, lying on the couch. So put it all together, and you have one of these zigzaggy sentences. Barbilus, lying on the couch, heard the astrologer, right? In English, we'll do that just the exact same way Latin does it here to avoid confusion. Because if you said Barbilus heard the astrologer lying on the couch, and he didn't have the picture, you'd think the astrologer was lying on the couch, right? It's all about where you put the clause. As we'll see in Latin, it's not all about that, but it can be. So here, we inserted this little participle in the middle, right after the word Barbilus, just to be clear about who was lying on the couch. So, Barbilus in lecto recumbens, nominative singular, audivit, third person singular, astrologum, accusative object. Last sentence, number 5. Formio ad urbem contendit medicum quaerens. Formio, nominative singular, contendit, third person singular, ad urbem. Formio hurried to the city. Formio is the Willicus, Barbilus's farm manager. He killed the goats, put them in the boats, went on the hippo hunt with Barbilus. Now his job is to go look for a doctor. So he hurried to the city because Barbilus lives outside of Alexandria. Formio hurried there, medicum quaerens. So quaerens is one of these participles, again, nominative singular because it's an NS, not an NT, and there's no letters after that. But that means seeking, looking for, because you remember quaerit means to seek. And who he's looking for is the medicum, doctor. So he hurried to city looking for doctor. And we'll see what happens when he gets back in the next story. Like I said before, these new forms are called present participles, and they describe what someone or something is presently doing or was presently doing at the time described in the sentence. That can be the subject of the verb, but it can also be the object of the verb. So let's look at these 3 examples to see that distinction in action. Medicus per forum ambulans formionem conspexit. The doctor walking through the forum saw formio. So everything that's blue there is in agreement. Formionem is the object. The doctor saw formionem as he was, the doctor that is, medicus was ambulans. You notice down here in the little chart at the bottom, NS is only for the nominative singular. Everywhere else you have NT, followed by whatever ending you need, in this case EM, or down at the very bottom in the plural, followed by ESs. Those NTs are dead giveaways that you're looking at participles, but NS is when it describes the nominative singular subject of the verb. So doctor walking through the forum saw formio. But in the second sentence here, which is from stage 18, we see the opposite. Clemens Eudicum in media via stantem invenit. Clemens found Eudicus, right? Eudicum is the object. He discovered, he found him. Stantem, standing. And that's accusative, right? that right there. That's the accusative because judicum is accusative. So we can actually move these things around, as we'll see, a little more than we could in English without being confused about who is finding who and who is standing where, because the endings kind of make it clear. More on that as we get into the stories. And then the last one is the same situation, but in the plural. Formio, ancillas in cubiculo lacrimantes audivit. Right, so Formio heard the girls crying. Right, Formio ancillas in cubiculo lacrimantes audivit. Now, fair full disclosure, es is nominative and accusative in the third declension, so that really could have been either one, but there's only one Formio, and there's lots of girls. So we'll see the ins and outs of how these things function in sentences presently as we go into stories. Now, the last thing I want to point out to you is that we use a lot of words in English that used to be Latin present participles. Some of these words on the screen are nouns, some are used as adjectives. All of them come from Latin verbs with the addition of this nt suffix. So agit means does or acts. An agent is acting on behalf of an organization. Accidit means to happen or befall. An accident is something that is just happening. You get the picture. Go down the list. Instead of writing a secret code word across the screen for you to enter as a private comment, I want you to think of at least one more word in English that follows this pattern and ends in nt. And don't be silly and write something like dent or tent, right? Something that comes from Latin. All right? Until next time, we'll start the actual stories in stage 20. Stay well out there.